Here's a look at the new and changed functionality in SAP HANA Smart Data Streaming for the SP12 release. Adapters for the Kafka message broker, setting streaming permissions through SAP HANA cockpit, multi-tenant database container support, and performance boosting parameters for the SAP IQ output adapter. There are now 10 new input and output adapters for different types of connections to and from Kafka servers: Avro Record, CSV, Event XML, JSON, and String. These adapters were built using the Adapter Toolkit, which now comes with Kafka-specific transporters and formatters. We've made it easier to manage user authorizations. We've added a streaming permissions tile for the SAP HANA cockpit so that you can manage streaming user roles and permissions visually without having to use the Streaming Cluster Admin utility. You can use the permissions tile to create, grant and remove roles, and grant and revoke streaming permissions for existing HANA users. Starting with this release, you can now deploy Smart Data Streaming in an SAP HANA system that is set up for multi-tenant database containers. This type of system has one central system database used for central system administration and any number of tenant databases. Something to note, however: while a single streaming cluster can be shared by all tenants on a HANA system, there isn't complete isolation between tenants within the streaming cluster. It's possible to configure a separate streaming cluster for each tenant of the HANA system, but in this case, each streaming cluster must run on a separate host. The SAP IQ output adapter contains two new parameters to help boost performance. The Ignore Constraints parameter, which specifies if you want the adapter to ignore data integrity constraints when loading data from IQ tables, and helps prevent load failures caused by these constraints. The Server-Side Load parameter, which lets you enable server-side loading instead of the default client-side loading. This feature helps boost performance by reducing the overhead that comes with performing a client-side load over a network. We've also made enhancements to the database output and streaming web output adapters, added a custom operations timeout property for project deployment, enabled encryption for streaming light, and more. Want to see more? Check the What's New guide on the SAP Help portal, or head over to the Streaming Developer Center on SCN and look over the feature blog. Thanks for watching.